I stood in the marble hallway of the Sterling mansion, divorce papers trembling in my hands, and wondered how my life had become a Greek tragedy, written by someone with a twisted sense of humor. 24 hours ago, I was Aria Stephen, scorned ex-girlfriend, broke art student, and professional disaster. Now, I was Mrs. Aria Sterling, wife to Alexander Sterling, the most powerful real estate mogul in New York, and stepmother to the man who destroyed me. And the worst part, I hadn't even realized what I'd done until it was too late. 3 months earlier, the rain fell like needles against my apartment window as I packed the last of Tega's things into a cardboard box. 3 years of my life, reduced to boxes of designer clothes and expensive cologne that still made my stomach turn. Aria, babe, you're being dramatic. Tega's voice crackled through my phone, which I'd stupidly answered. It was just one mistake. One mistake. My voice broke despite my best efforts. I found you in our bed with my roommate, Tega. In our bed. Technically, it's my bed. I paid for the apartment. The casualness in his tone, that's what shattered me. Not the cheating. Not even the betrayal. It was how little it all meant to him. You know what? You're right. It is your bed. Your apartment. Your life. I grabbed my jacket with shaking hands. I'm done. Where are you going to go, Aria? You dropped out of your MFA program for me. You have no money, no job, no prospects. You need me. The truth of his words hit harder than any insult could. I'd given up my scholarship at Parsons, moved across the country, made myself small and dependent, all for a man who just reminded me how worthless I'd become. I'd rather sleep on the streets than spend another second in your world. I hung up, grabbed my single suitcase, and walked out into the October rain with exactly $247 in my bank account and nowhere to go. That night, I ended up at the Velvet Room, an upscale hotel bar in Manhattan where I definitely couldn't afford a single drink. But my best friend Tiffany was bartending, and she promised me free vodka and a shoulder to cry on. He's not worth it, babe, Tiffany said, sliding me my third martini. Tega Sterling is a spoiled trust fund, baby who's never worked a real day in his life. I know that now. I took a long sip, the alcohol burning pleasantly down my throat. God, I'm so stupid. 3 years, Tiffany. I gave him 3 years. You're not stupid. You're young, and you loved him. That's not a crime. It feels like one. A deep voice interrupted us. Excuse me, is this seat taken? I looked up, and my breath caught. The man standing beside me was probably in his late 40s, but aging like fine wine, aged with dignity, richness, and an inexplicable ability to get better with time. Salt and pepper hair swept back from a strong face with sharp cheekbones and the kind of jaw that could cut glass. His suit probably cost more than my entire year's rent, and his eyes steel gray with flecks of blue held in intensity. That made me forget my own name for a moment. It's all yours, I managed, gesturing to the stool beside me. He sat down with the fluid grace of someone comfortable in his own skin, ordered a whiskey neat, and then turned those devastating eyes on me. Rough night? I laughed bitterly. Rough life, more like. I know the feeling. He raised his glass. To rough lives and the alcohol that gets us through them. I clinked my martini against his whiskey. Cheers to that. Alexander, he said, extending his hand. Aria. His handshake was firm, warm, confident. Everything I wasn't feeling at that moment. So what brings a beautiful woman to a hotel bar on a Tuesday night, Aria? His voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of something darker underneath. Catastrophic life choices and betrayal. I said with a laugh that sounded slightly unhinged. You? Business meetings and a desperate need to not be alone with my thoughts. There was something in the way he said it, of vulnerability, beneath the polished exterior, that made me look at him more closely. This wasn't just some businessman having a drink. This was someone carrying his own weight. What kind of thoughts are we avoiding? I asked. He studied me for a long moment, the kind that remind you that success and happiness aren't the same thing, that you can build an empire and still feel like you're standing in ruins. I felt something shift in my chest. That's actually really honest. The alcohol helps with honesty. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Or maybe it's the company. We talked for hours. I told him about Tega, about giving up my dreams, about feeling lost at 24. He told me about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of the top, about a marriage that had ended years ago in everything but paperwork. My ex-wife passed away 5 years ago, he said quietly, staring into his glass. We'd been separated for a decade before that, but I still loved her. Just not in the right way anymore. I'm sorry, I said softly. Don't be. We had our time. It just wasn't meant to last forever. He looked at me with those intense eyes. But talking to you tonight, Aria, this is the first time in years I felt genuinely interested in getting to know someone. My heart stuttered. Alexander, I know this is crazy. I know we just met, but would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? I should have said no. Should have recognized that I was vulnerable, that I was drunk, that this was a terrible idea. But there was something magnetic about him, something that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Yes, I heard myself say, I'd like that. That dinner turned into another, and another. Within 2 weeks, I moved into Alexander's penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. Within a month, I was falling for him with an intensity that terrified me. He was everything Tega wasn't: attentive, generous, genuinely interested in my art and my dreams. He set up a studio space in his apartment, encouraged me to paint again, introduced me to gallery owners and collectors. You're incredibly talented, Arya, he said one evening, standing in front of my latest piece, an abstract representation of rebirth in crimson and gold. Don't let anyone make you forget that. Even you? I teased, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind. He turned, pulling me close. Especially me. Promise me you'll never make yourself small for a man again. Not even for me. I kissed him, and he kissed me back with a passion that still surprised me. For a man who'd built walls around his heart for years, he'd let me in with a vulnerability that made me love him even more. Marry me, he said suddenly, pulling back to look into my eyes. I laughed. Alexander, I'm serious, Arya. I know it's fast. I know people will say I'm crazy, but I'm 47 years old, and I've spent the last decade going through the motions. Then you walked into that bar, and suddenly I remembered what it feels like to actually be alive. He took my hands. Marry me. Not because you need me, but because we choose each other. My eyes filled with tears. Yes, God, yes. We flew to Vegas that weekend. No big wedding, no guests, just us and an Elvis impersonator, and the most ridiculous, wonderful, impulsive decision of my life. I became Mrs. Arya Sterling on a Saturday night in October, drunk on love and champagne and the possibility of second chances. I didn't know I just married into my worst nightmare. The first hint that something was wrong came at Alexander's office the following Monday. Mr. Sterling, your son is here to see you, his assistant said over the intercom. I was sitting in Alexander's office, sketching ideas for my upcoming gallery show. At the word son, I looked up. You have a son? I asked, surprised. He'd never mentioned children. Alexander's expression tightened. We're not close. I haven't seen him in almost 2 years. Why not? It's complicated. He stood, adjusting his tie. Would you mind waiting here? This shouldn't take long. Of course. He kissed my forehead and walked toward the door. Through the glass walls of his office, I could see a figure approaching. Tall, dark-haired, wearing an expensive suit. My blood turned to ice. No. Tega Sterling walked into Alexander's office, and the world tilted on its axis. Father, Tega said coldly, then stopped dead when he saw me. What the fuck is she doing here? I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My ex-boyfriend and my husband were staring at each other, and the resemblance I'd somehow missed before was suddenly glaringly obvious. The same strong jaw, the same build, the same piercing eyes. Though Alexander's held warmth while Tega's held cruelty. Arya? Alexander looked between us, confusion crossing his face. Do you two know each other? Know each other? Tega laughed bitterly. She's my ex-girlfriend, the one I told you about, the clingy art student who couldn't take a hint. The room spun. I gripped the edge of Alexander's desk to keep from falling. Your ex-girlfriend, Alexander repeated slowly, the color draining from his face. Arya is your ex-girlfriend? Dad, what is she doing in your office? Tega's eyes narrowed, unless his face twisted with shock and disgust. No. Tell me you didn't. Didn't what? Alexander's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Sleep with my sloppy seconds. The words hung in the air like poison. I felt bile rise in my throat. Alexander's hand clenched into a fist at his side. Get out. Not until you tell me what. Get out. Alexander's voice thundered through the office, making the glass walls tremble. Get out of my office. Out of this building. And don't come back. Tega stared at his father, then at me. This is rich. Absolutely rich. Does she know, Dad? Does she know you're dying? My heart stopped. What? But Tega was already walking away, his laughter echoing down the hallway. I turned to Alexander, who gone pale. What did he mean, dying? Arya. Alexander. What did he mean? He sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 47 years. I was going to tell you. I was waiting for the right time. Tell me what. I have pancreatic cancer. Stage 3. The doctors give me. Maybe a year. Maybe less. The words hit me like bullets. No. That can't be. We just got married. I know. His voice broke. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you before we got married, but I was selfish. For the first time in years, I felt happy. I felt alive, and I didn't want to lose that. I stared at this man I'd married, this man I'd fallen in love with, and felt the universe laughing at me. I'd escaped from Tega Sterling straight into the arms of his dying father. I need to go, I whispered. Arya, please, I need to think. I grabbed my bag and ran. I ended up at Tiffany's apartment, hysterical and broken. Let me get this straight, Tiffany said slowly, pouring me tea because I was shaking too hard for alcohol. You married your ex's father. Your billionaire husband is dying. And said X just found out about all of this. Yes, I buried my face in my hands. God, Tiffany, what have I done? Okay, first of all, you didn't know. None of this is your fault, isn't it? What if part of me wanted revenge? What if subconsciously I knew who Alexander was? And I? Stop, Tiffany gripped my shoulders. You fell in love. That's not a crime. That's not revenge. That's just really unfortunate timing. My phone buzzed. Alexander's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it yet, Tiffany said. Give yourself time to process. But I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Alexander's face, the devastation, the fear that he'd lost me. I answered the call. Arya. His voice was raw. Please come home. Let me explain everything. There's nothing to explain, Alexander. You're dying. You have a son who hates both of us now. And I'm the idiot who married into this mess. You're not an idiot. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. He paused. I know this is a lot. I know you probably want to run, but I'm asking you to stay. Not forever, I know I can't give you that, but for whatever time I have left, stay with me. Tears streamed down my face. I don't know if I can. Then just come home tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. I looked at Tiffany, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, I whispered. I'll come home. The penthouse was dark when I arrived. I found Alexander standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the glittering city below. I met your mother when I was 25, he said without turning around. Victoria. She was beautiful, ambitious, from old money. Everything my blue-collar parents thought I should want. I set down my bag and moved to stand beside him. We got married young, had Tega a year later, built the company together. His reflection in the window looked haunted. But somewhere along the way, we became business partners instead of lovers. We stayed together for Tega, for appearances, for the company. When she got sick, his voice broke. When she got sick, I realized I'd wasted decades in a loveless marriage, and I vowed never to settle again. Is that what I am? I asked quietly, a way to not die alone. He finally turned to face me, and the raw emotion in his eyes took my breath away. You're the reason I want to fight for every extra day I can get. You're the reason I wake up in the morning. You're not a consolation prize, Arya. You're everything I didn't know I was still capable of feeling. But it's not fair, I whispered. You're asking me to love you knowing I'm going to lose you. I know. He cupped my face in his hands. I know it's selfish. I know it's cruel. But I'm asking anyway. Because these past 2 months with you have been worth more than the previous decade. And if all I get is a year with you, I'll take it over a lifetime with anyone else. I closed my eyes, tears spilling over. I'm so angry at you. I know. And I'm terrified. I know. But I love you. God help me. Alexander, I love you. He kissed me then, desperate and tender, like a drowning man finding her. And I kissed him back, making my choice even as my heart was breaking. I would stay, for however long we had. The next few weeks were a delicate balance of stolen happiness and looming dread. Alexander started aggressive, treatment chemotherapy that left him exhausted and nauseous, but determined. I painted and cared for him, and tried not to count the days. Tega, meanwhile, launched a full-scale war. It started with the lawyers. He contested Alexander's will, claiming I was a gold digger who'd manipulated his dying father. When that didn't work, he went to the press. Billionaire Alexander Sterling's child bride, gold digger or true love. The headlines were brutal. My face was everywhere labeled a homewrecker, opportunist, a girl young enough to be Alexander's daughter who'd seduced him for his money. Ignore them, Alexander said firmly as I scrolled through another vicious article. They don't know you. They don't know us. But it was hard to ignore when I couldn't leave the penthouse without photographers shouting questions. When my phone exploded with hateful messages. When even Tiffany started getting harassment at work. He's trying to break you, she said during one of her visits. Don't let him. But Tega wasn't done. 2 months into Alexander's treatment, I came home to find my studio destroyed. Paintings slashed, supplies shattered, years of work reduced to rubble. Gold Digger was spray painted across the wall in furious red letters. I stood in the doorway, shaking with rage and grief. Alexander found me there an hour later, still staring at the destruction. "I'm calling the police," he said, pulling out his phone. "Don't." My voice was hollow. "We both know it was Tega, and we both know he has enough money to make this disappear. Arya, I can't do this anymore. Alexander." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I can't be the reason you and your son are destroying each other. I can't be the person the whole world thinks is just waiting for you to die so I can cash in. You're not that person, but that's what everyone sees." I turned to face him, tears streaming down my face. And maybe they're right to wonder. Maybe I am selfish for staying. Maybe I should just go and let you reconcile with Tega before it's too. "Don't." He crossed the room in 3 strides, gripping my shoulders. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. Tega made his choices long before you came into my life. This isn't about you. This is about him never forgiving me for not being the father he wanted." "What do you mean?" Alexander's face twisted with old pain. "When Victoria got sick, Tega was 80. He begged me to spend more time with her, to slow down with the company, to prioritize family. But I was building an empire. I thought I was doing it for them for our future. I didn't realize I was missing their present. He released me, running a hand through his hair. She died, and Tega blamed me. Said I worked her to death, and maybe he was right. Alexander, the point is, my relationship with my son was broken long before you. You didn't cause this, and leaving won't fix it." He took my hands. "But I understand if you need to go. If this is too much, I'll never hold it against you." I looked around at my destroyed studio, at the man I loved standing in the wreckage, offering me freedom even as it killed him. And I made my second choice. "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly, "but I am done being passive. If Tega wants a war, he's going to get one." A slow smile spread across Alexander's face. "There's my fierce girl. I hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but Margaret Stephen, the most cutthroat attorney in New York, and my distant cousin twice removed. If Tega wanted to play dirty, I'd show him what dirty really looked like. This harassment needs to be documented," Margaret said, reviewing the photos of my destroyed studio. "Every threatening message, every article, every instance of stalking. We're building a case. For what? A restraining order to start. Then we go after him for defamation, destruction of property, and anything else we can make stick." Her smile was sharp. "Nobody messes with a Stephen, even a Stephen by marriage." While Margaret worked on the legal front, I focused on my art. Alexander had the studio rebuilt bigger, better, with security cameras and reinforced locks. I painted with a fury I'd never felt before, channeling all my rage and fear and love into canvases that practically vibrated with emotion. My gallery show was scheduled for January, 3 months away. 3 months to prove I was more than a gold digger, more than a scandal, more than Tega Sterling's cast-off. But as November turned to December, Alexander's health deteriorated. "The cancer's progressing," his oncologist said in a voice that tried to be gentle, and only managed to be devastating. "The treatment isn't working as well as we'd hoped." "How long?" Alexander asked, his hand tight around mine. 6 months, maybe less. I felt something crack inside my chest. Less than 6 months. Our year together had been cut in half. That night, I held Alexander as he cried for the first time since. I'd known him not for himself, but for everything we wouldn't get to have. The years of mornings and inside jokes and growing old together. The possibility of children, of grandchildren, of a lifetime of ordinary moments that now seemed infinitely precious. "I'm not ready," he whispered into my ear. "I'm not ready to leave you." "Then don't," I said fiercely. "Fight. We'll fight together." And fight we did. Alexander switched to an experimental treatment, risky, brutal, but offering a sliver of hope. I was with him through every infusion, every setback, every small victory. We celebrated when his tumor shrank even a millimeter. We held each other through the nights when the pain was too much. And through it all, Tega kept attacking. He showed up at the penthouse on Christmas Eve, drunk and belligerent. "You're killing him," he spat at me through the intercom. "He should be resting, but instead he's playing house with a child." "I'm 24, I said coldly, "and your father is an adult who makes his own choices. He's dying because of you." "No, Tega, He's dying because of cancer. But you're the one making his last months miserable. So ask yourself who's really killing him. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, I'll destroy you. I'll make sure you never see a penny of his money. Well, I don't want his money. I shouted. I want him. I want every precious day I can get with him. I want to love him and be loved by him for however long we have. That's all I've ever wanted. And if you can't understand that, then you never really knew your father at all. I hung up, shaking with adrenaline. Alexander appeared behind me, weaker than he'd been, but smiling. That was quite a speech. I meant every word. I know you did. He pulled me close. Have I told you lately that you're extraordinary? Not in the last hour. Then I'm overdue. He kissed my forehead. You're extraordinary, Arya Sterling, and I'm the luckiest man alive to have you. My gallery show opened in January to a packed crowd. Critics, collectors, society types who come to gawk at the infamous child bride. They all filled the sleek white space, studying my paintings with varying degrees of skepticism and curiosity. Alexander stood beside me, thinner than he'd been, but steady, his hand warm in mine. Nervous? He murmured, terrified. Don't be. Your work is brilliant. The paintings were a chronicle of the past for months' love and loss, rage and resilience, the beauty found in impermanence. I titled the collection Borrowed Time, and every piece was a love letter to the man beside me. Ladies and gentlemen, the gallery owner announced. The artist, Arya Sterling. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and faced the crowd. For months ago, I didn't think I'd be standing here. I began. I'd given up on my art, on myself, on the possibility that my life could be anything other than small and sad. Then I met someone who reminded me that it's never too late for a second chance. That love doesn't follow a timeline or fit into society's boxes. That the most important thing we can do with our time, however much we have, is to love fiercely and create fearlessly. I looked at Alexander, who was watching me with pride shining in his eyes. These paintings are about borrowed time, about loving someone knowing you'll lose them, about finding beauty in the temporary and strength in the broken places, and about refusing to let other people's judgment define your truth. The room erupted in applause. Critics who'd come to sneer stayed to buy. By the end of the night, every painting had a red sold dot, and I had commissions lined up for the next 6 months. You did it, Alexander whispered as we stood together, watching the last guest leave. You're a star. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Oh, I think you could have. I just gave you the space to remember who you already were. I kissed him, pouring for months of love and fear and gratitude into that single moment. When we pulled apart, he was smiling through tears. I have something for you, he said. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. I know we're already married. I know we did this backward and inside out, but I wanted to do at least one thing properly. He opened the box to reveal a ring of stunning diamond, surrounded by smaller stones in a vintage, setting that took my breath away. This was my grandmother's, he said. She gave it to me before she died. Told me to save it for someone who made my heart sing. Arya, you make my heart sing. You make every day worth fighting for. Will you accept this ring not as a symbol of ownership or obligation, but as a promise that you've changed my life in ways I can never repay? I held out my shaking hand, and he slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. I love you. I whispered. I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone, he replied. We held each other in the empty gallery, surrounded by my paintings, and I felt a strange peace settle over me. Whatever happened next, however long, we'd made something beautiful together, and no one could take that away. But Tega tried. In February, he filed a lawsuit claiming I'd unduly influenced Alexander to change his will. The case was flimsy. Alexander had changed his will before we even met, ensuring his fortune would be split between charitable foundations and cancer research. But it still meant depositions, lawyers, and stress that Alexander didn't need. He's just trying to hurt you, Margaret said after another brutal deposition where Tega's lawyer had called me everything from a prostitute to a murderer. He knows he can't win. This is pure spite. Then let him have his spite, I said tiredly. I don't care about the money. I never have. I know. But we need to fight this anyway, because if we don't, he'll claim victory by default. So we fought. Through February and into March, as Alexander's health continued to decline, the experimental treatment had bought us time, but not a cure. He was in pain more often than not, and the strong, vibrant man I'd married was fading a little more each day. "I'm sorry," he said one night as I helped him into bed. "This isn't the life I promised you. You never promised me anything except honesty and love." I replied, climbing in beside him. "And you've given me both. I wanted to grow old with you, take you to Paris, buy you a cottage by the sea, watch you become famous." "Alexander," I pressed my fingers to his lips. "I don't need Paris or cottages or fame. I need you, right here, right now." "That's enough." He pulled me close, and we lay together in the darkness, listening to each other breathe. The truth about Tega came out in the most unexpected way. Through his own mother's journals, Alexander had kept Victoria's things in storage, unable to look at them after her death. But in March, he asked me to help him go through them. "I want you to know her," he explained, "to understand where I came from." Among the boxes of photographs and clothes, I found Victoria's diaries, years of elegant handwriting chronicling her life, her marriage, her son. "Do you mind if I read these?" I asked Alexander. "Please do." She was complicated, but she deserved to be known. I started reading that night and couldn't stop. Victoria Sterling had been brilliant, ambitious, and deeply unhappy. Her marriage to Alexander had been loveless but functional until Tega was born. Then everything changed. "I love my son," she wrote when Tega was 5. "But there's something off about him. A cruelty. Yesterday he killed the neighbor's cat and laughed about it. Alexander says he's just a boy, but I see the emptiness in his eyes. It frightens me." The entries grew darker. Tega manipulating other children. Tega setting fires. Tega charming his teachers while terrorizing classmates. Victoria had tried to get him help, but Alexander, buried in his work, had dismissed her concerns. "My husband thinks I'm being dramatic," she wrote when Tega was 15. "But I know my son. He's a sociopath. I've known it for years, and I'm terrified of what he'll become." The final entries were the most chilling. Victoria had discovered that Tega was embezzling from the company. When she confronted him, he threatened her. He told me that if I said anything, he'd make sure I regretted it. She wrote 3 months before her death. "I believe him. God help me. I believe my own son is capable of anything." The last entry, written a week before she died, made my blood run cold. "I'm not getting better. The doctors are baffled the cancer treatment should be working, but I keep getting weaker. Last night, I saw Tega in my medication cabinet. He didn't see me watching, but I wonder, could my own son be?" The entry ended there. Victoria had died 2 days later. I brought the journals to Alexander with shaking hands. "I think you need to read these." He read in silence, his face growing paler with each page. When he finished, he looked up at me with devastated eyes. She thought he was poisoning her. "The journals aren't proof," I said carefully. But it makes sense." He stood, pacing like a caged animal despite his weakness. The doctors never understood why she stopped responding to treatment, and Tega had access to her medication. He was always there, the dutiful son, helping her take her pills. "Alexander, we need to go to the police." "With what? A dead woman's suspicions? They'll say she was paranoid from the cancer, the drugs. Then we investigate. We find proof." He looked at me for a long moment. "This is dangerous, Arya. If Tega did kill his own mother, double quotes, then he needs to be stopped before he hurts anyone else." I took his hands. "Before he hurts you, we hired a private investigator, a former FBI agent named Sarah Michaels, who specialized in cold cases. Within 2 weeks, she'd uncovered enough circumstantial evidence to make my skin crawl. Tega had purchased rat poison 6 months before Victoria's death, supposedly, for a rodent problem in his apartment, but the building had no record of any infestation. Victoria's medical records showed a sudden spike in symptoms, consistent with arsenic poisoning, and most damningly, Tega had tried to access her life insurance policy within days of her death, claiming he was the primary beneficiary. He wasn't. Alexander was. "It's not enough for a criminal case," Sarah said, spreading the evidence across the conference table. "But it's enough to reopen the investigation, and enough to make Tega very, very nervous." "Do it," Alexander said. "I want the truth, whatever it is." The police reopened Victoria Sterling's case in April. The news made headlines immediately. Billionaire's son under investigation for mother's murder. Tega's response was swift and vicious. He held a press conference, tears streaming down his face, claiming that his father and I were fabricating evidence to steal his inheritance. She's poisoned his mind. Tega sobbed to the cameras. My father is dying, and this woman has manipulated him into believing these horrible lies about me. I loved my mother. I would never. But the performance fell flat. Victoria's journals had been turned over to the police, and suddenly people were remembering other incidents. A college girlfriend who died in a suspicious car accident. A business partner who mysteriously fallen down the stairs. A pattern of violence and cruelty stretching back years. All hidden behind Tega Sterling's charming smile. He's falling apart. Margaret reported after Tega's third rambling press conference. His lawyers are abandoning him. His friends are distancing themselves. It's only a matter of time. But time was something we didn't have. Alexander collapsed in May. One moment we were having breakfast, laughing about something silly, and the next he was on the floor, unconscious. The ambulance ride to the hospital was the longest of my life. I held his hand and prayed to gods I didn't believe in, making promises I knew I couldn't keep. Don't leave me, I whispered. Please, Alexander, don't leave me yet. He woke up in the ICU, tubes and monitors surrounding him like a technological cocoon. Hey, he said weakly, smiling when he saw me. Sorry about that. Don't apologize. I kissed his forehead, his cheeks, his hands, anything I could reach. The doctors say you need to stay here for a few days. Let them stabilize you. Arya. His hand tightened around mine. We both know what this means. I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. I need you to promise me something, he continued, his voice growing stronger. When I'm gone, I need you to keep fighting. Keep creating. Keep being the extraordinary woman I fell in love with. Don't let Tega or anyone else make you small. Alexander, promise me. I promise. The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. But you have to promise me something too. Promise me you'll fight, that you'll hang on as long as you can. I promise, he whispered, for you. I promise. He held on for 3 more weeks. 3 weeks of stolen moments and whispered conversations and love that felt like could hold back death itself. Tiffany visited every day, bringing food and stories and normalcy. Margaret came with updates on Tega's case, and arrest warrant was imminent, pending the results of Victoria's exhumed autopsy. You did it, I told Alexander during one of his good days. You got justice for Victoria. We did it, he corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Arya, you gave me a reason to keep fighting. On June 3rd, as spring turned to summer outside the hospital windows, Alexander Sterling took his last breath with his hand in mine and my name on his lips. I love you. I whispered, I love you so much. And then he was gone. The funeral was a circus. Tega showed up in handcuffs. Escorted by police, the arrest warrant had come through 2 days after Alexander's death, and the evidence was overwhelming. He killed his mother slowly, methodically, over the course of months, and he'd been planning to do the same to his father. I should have been the one by his side. Tega snarled at me as the police led him away. Not you. Me. I'm his son. No. I said quietly. You're his murderer. He loved you anyway, but you're still a murderer. The trial would take months, but Margaret assured me the case was solid. Tega Sterling would spend the rest of his life in prison. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt empty. Alexander left me everything. The penthouse, the investments, more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But more importantly, he left me letters, dozens of them, written over the months when he could barely hold a pen. Each one a love letter, an encouragement, and a roadmap for living without him. My darling Arya, the first one read. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And you're probably sitting in our bedroom crying. Stop crying. Okay, you can cry for a little while, but then stop. I laughed through my tears, hearing his voice so clearly it hurt. I want you to know that these past 7 months with you have been the best of my life. You taught me that it's never too late for love, never too late for second chances. You made me feel young and alive and capable of anything. Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to live, really live, paint and travel and fall in love again when you're ready. Yes, again. Don't give me that look. I want you to be happy, even if it's with someone else. Build the life you deserve. Be brave, be bold. Be the woman who walked into that bar 7 months ago and changed everything. And remember every sunset you see, every beautiful moment you experience. I'm there with you. Not gone, just transformed. I'm in every canvas you create, every risk you take, every time you choose love over fear. Thank you for marrying me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for showing me that borrowed time can be more valuable than a lifetime. All my love, always and forever. Alexander. I cried until I had no tears left. Then I got up, washed my face, and opened my studio. It was time to paint. 1 year later, I stood in the cottage by the sea, the one Alexander had wanted to buy me, but never got the chance. I bought it myself with the gallery earnings, needing a place that was mine, that held no memories of loss. My second show was opening in New York next week. The collection was called After, and it was about survival and transformation, and learning to live with it. Alexander-shaped hole in your heart. My phone buzzed. A text from Tiffany. Guess who got convicted on all charges? That's right, Tega Sterling is going away for life. Justice served, babe. I smiled sadly. Justice didn't bring Alexander back, but it meant Victoria could finally rest, and it meant Tega couldn't hurt anyone else. I walked down to the beach, feeling the sand between my toes and the salt air in my lungs. The sun was setting, painting the sky in golds and pinks and purples that Alexander would have loved. I did it. I said to the ocean, to the sky, to wherever Alexander was now. I kept my promise. I'm still fighting, still creating, still being brave. The wind picked up, warm and gentle like a caress, and for the first time since Alexander died, I felt something other than grief. I felt hope. I felt possibility. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could build a life that honored what we had without being destroyed by losing it. I'd married my ex's father before I could realize it. I'd loved him fiercely and lost him too soon. But in the process, I found myself, and that was worth everything. This story was about finding love in unexpected places, fighting for justice, and learning that borrowed time can be more precious than forever. If you watched this far, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next.